disciples of Jesus look to the future. Listen to me, vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision is a waste of time, and vision with action can change the whole world. He will speak to you. The question is, are you listening?
So picking up with the
Yes.
engagement story.
Yeah, so this takes us to the point where we knew we were going to be able to commit. Well, really, you didn't have a problem with commitment. I'm the one that had the problem with commitment. So the breakups were my fault. I can own it now because I was the reason why you would have kept working, and I just, cowered it out and did what I didn't want to do, and I hurt you twice or three times.
Way more than that, but I'm not counting. Love doesn't keep
In
account.
dating. Anyway, so in my mind, once we knew we could be friends, we had the friendship, which developed again, connected to the Lord. And once I knew that I loved her, and for me it was hard because I didn't know what love was. I had the wrong viewpoint of love. If I would have known what love was, and we would have listened to someone like Pastor Paul early on, we could have gotten married before that extra semester when you were in your junior year. We could have been married at least 2 years, if not 3 years earlier than we were. So it was my fault that there was a delay that was unnecessary. But once we knew, and once we were connected to friendship and to vision and to understanding what the Lord wanted us to be one, then we made a choice to get to marriage as quick as we could, which is something that I think is important to recognize. Once God has spoken, in my opinion, you need to get there as quick as you can, for a number of reasons. But one is to keep yourself from entertaining doubt and unbelief. So
That's good.
Once
That's good.
once you have heard from God, and not that there's not room for counsel, not that there's not room to think through other aspects, but once God has spoken, and you have heard God's direction, then in my opinion, you need to go ahead and get to it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's important, because once you get engaged, when Jeff asked me to marry him, he said, "This is my commitment to you. The time that we're engaged is just preparing for the wedding ceremony. It's not a question of whether we're going to get married. I'm proposing to you. I'm committing to you right now that we are going to spend the rest of our lives together." And that was important for me, coming from my background, that he was committed to the relationship and to me, that no matter what happened during our engagement period, we were still getting married, because during that season, couples can be real fussy with each other. The details of planning a wedding and all her hopes and dreams and his hopes and dreams and all the things that can just mess up relationships getting ready for a wedding. So that was his commitment to me then. And he asked me how long it would take me to plan a wedding. And I was like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months. So he backed it up. We got engaged in February, got married in June. So there you go.
Cute.
I'd already hurt you at least twice. And so when I said that at our engagement, that was at Winfield's, right? At dinner that night?
Yes.
When I proposed. So when I said that, I was wanting to let her know I wasn't going to purposefully, well, I didn't purposely hurt you before. I was going to do my best not to hurt her again, and she needed to just be at peace that I wasn't going to break the engagement.
Nobody's perfect, and the closer you get to someone in a relationship, the more you find out about them. It's like peeling away those layers,
Right.
And so during engagement time, especially, the pressure's on. Everybody's watching you. There's just so much stuff that
Wondering
you could
if you're
easily
gonna make it.
Yeah, you could easily just go, this isn't worth it. I'm going to walk away. And so he was just letting me know I'm not ever walking away.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad that engagement seasons have so much tension, but it's also maybe purposeful so that there is a severity and an intention around, like, you're not just, having an event. You're committing a covenant relationship to one another.
Yes.
So I think there's the enemy's purpose in that, but I think there's also God's purpose and plan in that as well,
I agree.
of solidifying that covenant.
I
'Cause
love
you're
it.
right. You do change.
Yeah, I love it that at High Ridge we require everyone to go through marriage counseling. I think that going through a season of looking at yourself and your background and your hopes and dreams and desires and talking them through, because there's a lot of things you just don't think about. One of the books I remember we went through after we got married was Marriage Takes More Than Love.
Yeah.
And it had, every chapter had stuff in it that even though we were already married, we're like, we've never talked about this. And so just to be able to talk about, like, what's your expectation of Christmas? How did your family celebrate? How did, because that can be a huge, how much money do you spend? How do you do gifts? Do you wrap them? Do you surprise? There's just so many things in life that you can't think about to plan for ahead of time. And so going through, having a good counselor, having people that you walk through life together can really help you prepare for marriage.
Like having a budget for Christmas. How about a budget for Christmas? And then the other mindset is that's like a curse word. Budget for Christmas? I just want to.
I think budgets overall.
One of my favorite random memories that it's just a core memory now is whenever me and Jonathan were going through FPU. And I forget if another kid was going through it.
Jeremy was. Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy. Financial Peace University. We all wanted to be good with our finances. And so, of course, we're asking you guys for insight of how did you settle this and come up with a really good financial plan. And what was your response about your budget?
It's a battle that I have entered into before, and it's not worth the carnage. We're just going to have to trust the Lord, and I'll just run the budget in my mind and try to make it work that way.
I think I remember the quote was, we don't really budget, we just trust God and enjoy life. And that came from Mom.
As I was going to say a minute ago.
We're like, you don't budget? What do you mean?
When you guys left the house that night, we were like, they're so disappointed in us. We don't budget.
We really were. We're like, our parents do nothing wrong. Our parents do everything wrong.
Well, first of all, we've never had any money, so we had no reason to budget. We just survived.
But see, I run numbers in my head.
Yeah, and
you know that, and so
we actually haven't had fights over budget stuff. We just have never had a budget because we never had any money.
Did I say we had a fight over budget?
You said knock down, drag out, bloody gore stuff, like painting a really bad picture. So
from behind the screens, did I say that?
I don't remember.
Yo, chicken. I did not say that.
So just to keep this ball rolling. Oh, yes.
I wanted to finish what I was saying. So budgets. I joke about this, but I feel like when you put budgets together, it really is showing a lack of faith. Because if you're trusting the Lord, you're limiting what God can do.
Sorry, I'm so limited in my faith. I also loved when we were growing up, we had our rounds for groceries. This is such a tangent, but it feels like I should chase it since we're here. We would do our little grocery round. I think I was, 10 or 11. And we would go to Walmart, Sam's, Target, Costco. And we went there like every other week. It was our grocery day. And I remember I'd be at the cash register with you. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm not meaning to throw you under a bus.
That's all right.
But we'd be up there and you'd be like, so over under 200. Fingers crossed. I was like, I don't think we're going to make it. Just as I'm putting all the eggs on the cart and just watching that number climb, like, we're not going to make it.
Hey, to be fair, we had 5 children. We had 3 boys that ate every 2 hours, including your dad. So there's 4 boys eating every 2
hours. You're going to call
hours.
me a boy. Okay, there we go.
And all their friends, they would come in
All
and
their
like
friends.
clean out. It was like
locusts.
Yes.
The number of times that you bought 3 packages of turkey to last the week.
It lasted one
and
day.
that you made a whole pot, a big jug, barrel full of cookies. And it's like the boys and their friends knew. And they land at the house, and by the time they're gone, all the lunch meat's gone, all the cookies are gone.
And the cheese sticks.
And the cheese sticks. And they would take their backpacks, they would throw them open at the pantry and just like dump all the snacks. Anything that Mom purchased that was already wrapped, they just like threw it in their bag for later. They would go on trips or whatever. I'm like, come on.
We didn't mind. We love feeding everybody.
Yep.
If you feed them, they will come. And we want everyone to come to our house.
Which happened. So let's go to that. So you're young married. Both feel called to ministry.
Yes.
And I know we've got a lot of ground to cover here, so we're probably not going to get super far into older children. Let's say like young married, young kids, start a family, start a church. Can you talk us through, because a lot of spiritual growth happened, a lot of soul growth happened. So we're married now, we're doing life together. Let's start from there.
So when we got married, we were both still in seminary. Dad would go in the day, go to school all day long and then work at night, and I worked all day and went to school at night. So we rarely saw each other. Like I would go to bed and wake up at, what'd you get home at, like 11:30?
It was a 3 to 11 shift, so I got home at 11:30, 12.
So we would see each other for maybe half an hour, and then next day all over again. After a while, that got really wearing because our first year was very difficult. We hit a lot of walls. My will versus his will, my opinion versus his opinion. And we were here by ourselves. We didn't have any family here.
Well, first of all, we had no marriage counseling.
No marriage counseling.
None.
Correct. Because
So
our college pastor is the one who married us from Illinois, so we weren't in relationship, and we didn't see him, and he didn't know us other than from college. So we were 2 years removed from him, and there wasn't really an opportunity for marriage counseling.
And it didn't exist that much.
Right. They didn't do much back
It
in
was
that day.
just, hey, you're married.
Yeah. Make it
Don't-
work.
Make it work.
Good
don't,
luck.
Don't divorce. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so it took us a while to figure it out. We had to work really hard at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think really what helped us make it through the early years was our commitment to each other and all we had to work through, all the issues, and then just the times of us helping each other. So we were married, what, a year, and then a miscarriage? Was in the first year?
No. We had a miscarriage after 2 years, I think.
2 years. So early on, we had stuff we had to help through together. So 8 pregnancies total. 8 pregnancies total at least, and then just all the stuff that has come up throughout life. So broken tailbone was later, broken arm was later.
Yeah, I was around for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had stuff to work through, and so we lived lean. For the longest time, well, we still kind of don't have a savings account. For the longest time, every month it was $34 in the checking account, $27 in the checking account, because then you reconciled your checkbook to your bank statement every month. And man, it was survival, just survival mode. And ministerial salaries still aren't as good as they should be, in my opinion. But then there was like, the mindset was it's okay if the pastor's barefoot and poor. That'll keep him hungry for God. And so I'm not throwing any shade at anybody and slamming anybody, but those mindsets were around. And so early in our married life, early in our family life, there could have been lots of tension and lots of strife. We just chose to worship, trust the Lord, encourage each other. Once we got through, first 2 years was pretty rough, wasn't it? Or was it just first 1 year? Anyway, I think when Bethany came along, that's when I made a commitment to teamwork. And so
You bring up an interesting thought, though. I mean, you said you lived really lean, you worked through a lot of tense things, but you still were ready to start a family. So how did you know that? Because a lot of people, I mean, I hear probably more often is we're just not financially ready for a family right
you're
now.
never
I was
financially
just
ready
going to
for a
say that.
family.
You're never financially ready for a family. You never make enough. You think about it. But here's the amazing thing about our God. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And when you hear from the Lord, you move forward in faith, He'll take care of you. He'll provide for you. I remember even when y'all were little, and I thought about, what about when they start driving? We'll never be able to afford a car for our kids. We'll have to haul them around all the time because we could never pay for more cars. But every time anybody turned 16 and needed a car, there was always a vehicle. I don't even know how it happened. It's just
Neither do we.
amazing. I know. It's amazing to look back on it and just see how God takes care of His kids.
Yeah.
So one thing I really appreciate about Dad is he's always been a giver. He's always wanted to bless and serve and give towards other people. And so on our 1 month anniversary, we were going downtown to the restaurant that we had got engaged at, and we were going to celebrate our 1 month anniversary. And we're driving downtown, and this was before seatbelts were the law, and I didn't have my seatbelt on, and I was kind of turned in my seat towards Dad, and I was talking to him, and we got T-boned in an intersection in downtown Fort Worth, and never made it to that celebration. I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and I had
Wow.
bruised the lining of my heart on the dashboard.
No, yeah. So it was a Honda Accord 2-door. So the driver's area was kind of like a cockpit, kind of. So bucket seats. So she was sitting sideways. We got T-boned, so that just launched her right into the console
Oh no.
chest first, and she smashed against it and hit her head on the rearview mirror and had a knot on her head. And yeah, it bruised. It was something, hypocardia, something. But she was down flat for a month, right? No heart rate increase, no. So yeah, we started out being bonded, helping each other.
I forgot where I was going with that story. What were we talking about?
So
Well,
we got the
Working
insurance
through
settlement.
things. Oh, and he gave away. Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about. He was very giving. So in that day, again, your insurance settlement was 3 times your
Medical
expenses
bills.
for pain and suffering. So we got a crazy settlement on that because it wasn't our fault. We got T-boned by this person. And when the settlement came, his first thing was wanting to give away like a third of it
Classic dad.
to the youth group back home that were going on choir tour. Because one thing in our Baptist church, every summer, the youth group went on a tour of churches called choir tour.
Something.
And he wanted to give money towards that. And I was stunned because here we are, seminary students. We have no money. Now we need to buy a car, all this kind of stuff. But he wanted to do that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to trust you and trust the Lord. But he's always been that way. Like if he ever gets anything, he turns around and gives something away. That's his nature of who the Lord made him to be. And I've really grown to appreciate it over the years because when you do that, you live that way, you're living in God's economy, not the world's economy. And so what looks impossible with the world's economy is totally possible with God's economy.
Right.
So we've always given away cars and furniture and all kinds of stuff.
Appliances and clothes.
And not held on
and
to
money.
things.
Yeah. So when you were young, married, you were starting your family. What were the spiritual things that you started to work into your rhythm that helped keep you strong and grounded?
Dad is very good at big vision things. And so his vision for us was to be healthy, spirit, soul, and body. So that's really been a theme of his life. And so developing things that we could grow together spiritually, because we're called as a married couple to be in unity. So we can be in unity, spirit, soul, and body. How can we build unity spiritually? We share spiritual things. That was easy for us because that was what was common to us already, was sharing spiritual things.
What does that mean?
So
Dreams.
dreams,
quiet
visions,
time
quiet time
insights,
insights, reading the word together, ministering together.
worship songs that minister to us,
Yeah.
move us.
We would go to any time there was that worship opportunity, like a night of worship or whatever it might be. We would always go to that. Y'all remember when you were kids, we'd go over to Christ for the Nations for their
Yep.
monthly night of worship. We sought after the Lord together, and that really kept us bonded spiritually, which really helps take care of a lot of the soulish things about, who decides which way the towels get folded or where you put things on the wall or all those big shocking things that happened when we first got married. As I said, I went to school. I worked all day and went to school at night. I came
Why
home
you
from
have to go here?
I came home from work one day shortly after
I
we'd been married,
categorically deny this. I want the listening audience to know this is exaggerated right here.
and he had been home off and on through the day in between classes, and he had decided for some strange reason to hang all of the things on the walls that we had gotten as wedding gifts, and they were like way up at the ceiling. And I walked in, and I was like, "Why is that? What happened?"
So in
So
my
we had
defense,
to have a conversation that inside the home is mine, outside the home is his. No one's going to walk in the house and go, "Oh, Jeff, you did a great job decorating." They're going to walk in and go, "Dawn, why did
No,
you hang
no,
that
no.
there?"
in my defense, and this is the real truth. We were back from our honeymoon. There were lots of boxes in the way. She stubs her feet on stuff all the time. And I didn't want to have another accident after we came through the result of that 1 month accident and then you being down for a month. So I just started being a blessing to my wife and emptying out some of the boxes that we got for our wedding presents and stuff. And I was just trying to help out
It feels like you were doing a really great job of taking initiative.
without permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you were developing those rhythms, I know that they bled over into our lives because my earliest memory is we would always have quiet time as a family. We would do our little bedtime routine together, play obedience games, read the word, and then you would put us to bed. But I know that you didn't stop pursuing the Lord individually. So you talked about doing things together. So you would have your own quiet times, you would have time where you shared together, and then you had time where you led the family.
Correct.
And those were all different.
Yes.
How did you know to do that? And how did you protect that as busy as it can be with 5 kids?
Well, we prioritized. So it wasn't because we were ministers. It was because that's the life that we wanted.
That's good.
And so we didn't we didn't set it up that way. We didn't set it up that way so that it would help us in ministry and make things easier. We set it up that way because that's the life we wanted. And so just, meeting with the Lord first thing in the day. And a lot of friends that waited to meet with the Lord at the end of the day. But then when you start talking about what it was, quite often it would be very short and they'd fall asleep. Well, I didn't want to fall asleep on the Lord. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because you can find examples of that in Scripture where people just were with the Lord, rested in the Lord. I have taken naps before where I was just like, Lord, I'm too tired to read, and I love you. I'm just going to catch a nap. And that wasn't sin. So we didn't do what we did as a religious practice. We did it as a relational connection with God.
Yep.
And so I wanted her to be connected. I wanted to be connected. I wanted us to be connected. And we wanted to show you kids what it was like to just live your life, have a blast of a time, enjoy life, but able to stay connected to the Lord as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And they were fun. I do love the way you guys protected that. I told somebody, they were asking me on behalf of their teenager, they're like, you were raised by ministers, I'm a minister, I got a teenage daughter. How did you not resist the Lord over time? Because you just see that so much. It's so common, unfortunately. Sorry, allergies are getting me too.
Man.
But I said, whenever you talk about health and fitness, or you talk about something you're really passionate about, you talk about it because of how it's affected you.
Mm-hmm.
And then people want to know more because it's so transformed you. Like, oh, tell me more about that. So it's not about you telling them how to be fit. It's you just sharing your passion. You just sharing your life. I was like, I feel like with my parents, when it came to faith, it was never, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do to be saved and all this stuff to be a proper Christian or religious household. It was, this is who I am in the Lord. This is how it's transformed my life. How has he transformed you? How is he speaking to you? And it was this exchange of passion and relationship, not like a forceful implementation.
Right.
Obviously there's parenting that goes with that, but I remember being so frustrated one time, many times actually, because I would ask you, Mom, for like you to just tell me, what do you think the Lord wants me to do? Just tell me. Like, Bree, you have to hear from the Lord yourself. Like, you would so far remove yourselves as parents from being our Holy Spirit that you would so enforce it's your relationship, not mine. And we want you to hear the Lord. And we're going to support you and pray with you and offer confirmations and things where we can, but it's yours. And it just has always been that way. I think families in right pursuit of them having a household that loves God in a wrong way enforces some things. And how would you help someone in a family, young family especially, know how to do that well? Where is the parenting line and where is the partnering line?
So you start out training children. They have to be trained. That's what the Scripture says. And then at some point, and it's different with each child, you switch to the teaching mode. So you go from one T to another T. So training, establishing patterns, obedience is a key part of that because God wants us to obey him. And then it switches to teaching. So then we, instead of training you and giving you directions to follow, then we teach principles and help you to develop your own worldview and develop your own decision-making practices. And I don't know what the age was. It's different, I think, with each child. But so we wanted you all to be friends with each other and friends with us when we grew up. We didn't want to have it just be, I've got you for these 10 years and then get out of here and go do your life. We wanted to, if the Lord directed it, we wanted to do life with you all the way through. And we put that in God's hands. We didn't manipulate it to happen. And so I would say the concept from training to teaching, and I would say the concept of making certain that friendship was in place. So you just mentioned, Mom, just tell me. Well, the reason why she wouldn't tell you is she wanted you to learn, be able to stand on your own and learn. And that was in the teaching aspect and in the friendship aspect of teaching you how not giving you the directives, but giving you counsel, wise counsel, so that you can make your own directives.
True.
Go.
Yeah, I think it's important that we give our children tools to be able to make good decisions and to help them to understand where to go for wisdom and for knowledge. It'd be easy for parents just to direct every step their child takes, but we knew that the Lord told us vision for our family was to help our children to know God, to love Him with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so our life was all about the Lord. It wasn't something we just did on Sundays. And again, like you said, not because we were ministers, but because of who we are in the Lord. So even if we weren't on church staff, we probably would still do most of the things that we do right now. We would teach and lead and mentor and pour into people because that's who God created us to be.
Right.
And so that's what we taught our children, was to pour into people. So we had lots of people in our home. We had small groups in our homes. We would have you guys come in and pray for people. Even I remember we would do marriage counseling, and you guys would be playing in the playroom, and when it came time for prayer, we'd say, y'all come in and pray for them, and y'all would lay hands on people and pray for their marriages. So we taught you as you were growing up how to put others first, how to seek the Lord, how to pray for people, how to encourage people, because that's what we felt like the Lord put in our hearts, how to raise our family, to invest in others, to put others first.
Yeah. So balancing a family and relationship and all that goes into that and starting a church seems like that would be a huge strain and take a lot of prayer and discipline and protection. So how did you protect your relationship, your family, your spiritual life, and a church family?
When we started the church, it was a very intense season. I had been pregnant and had a very difficult loss right before the church started. We'd lost baby Jared, and then felt like the Lord told us to not let our childbearing end with that tragedy. But then the Lord gave us Josiah, so it makes me emotional talking about it. But anyway, the Lord gave us Josiah, and then so we just had a baby, had a loss, had a baby. Started the church, and it was just a lot of things all at one time. But here's the thing, even in the midst of all the craziness that was going on during that season, we knew that God had given us a word to start the church, and we could stand on that. We didn't know where the money was going to come from, how are we going to pay for all these children, what about all our medical bills, what about this, what about that. We didn't have any, shockingly for me, even when I think back on that season, I never doubted, because I knew God had given us a word that we were to start the church. And God amazingly took care of us through that whole season. It was just such a peace through all the processes, through all the things that we had to, hoops we had to jump through and all the things, because when God gives you a word and you're listening to Him and following Him, then, as I said, He can take care of all those other things around your life.
Yeah.
So you won't remember this because this is before you, but it ties back into when my life turned around, which connected into our dating life. Dawn and my dating life. But when I was baptized in the Holy Spirit, the Lord started giving me dreams. And that kind of stunned me, shocked me. I didn't know how to do that, didn't know what that meant. And so I just studied and learned how the various ways that God spoke, the way He reveals Himself to people. So I just learned that from the Scriptures, those 7 ways. And I didn't ask for it. I didn't say, Lord, I'm going to go to sleep. I don't want you to give me a dream. I just said, Lord, if you speak to me in the nighttime, I'm your servant. I'll listen and I'll obey. And so He started giving me dreams. So in the midst of the difficulty, and I don't remember the timing of Jared's birth versus the dream to start the church, but it was in that same season. And so I had learned, because it was a dream that led me to propose to your mom. It was a dream that led me to come to seminary. So I knew how God directed and ordered my steps, and quite often it was through dreams. And so I knew that, and I knew that what He speaks and what He initiates, He'll provide for. And so I knew when I had the dream about starting the church, and it was very clear that it was going to be blessed. There was new fresh oil on the road, just all kinds of things that have spiritual significance. I knew that it would work. I knew it was going to be hard, but I knew that it would work. So starting the church wasn't hard for me. I was disappointed, honestly, at the first interest meeting. There was me and your mom, a retired couple, He was a retired bus driver. She's a retired bookkeeper. Two single guys, both named Mark. So Jeff and Dawn, Royce and Marie, Mark and Mark, and then you and Josiah wasn't born yet, and you and Jonathan were too little. You'd been put to bed, but Bethany and Jeremy kept kind of hanging around. So I counted them in that first meeting as well. So at the first interest meeting to start the church, we had 8 people.
And you
Anyway,
did church in your home, right?
we started out with interest meetings in the home. Yep.
After how long did you move to a building?
Well, so I knew the dream was literal about, and it was on a highway, and it was on the highway here in Benbrook. And so once I realized we needed to have somewhere to meet, and it was time for the church to start, and this was before the church planting movement, so there wasn't anybody to tell you how to do it. You just kind of did it. But I went out on the highway and I just started praying when I got off the interstate and got onto the state highway here in Texas. I just started praying as I was driving down. I drove really slow down the street looking for vacant buildings, looking for somewhere. And there was a building there where I had the dream. And I found that interesting, but it was marked for demolition. And so I was like, man, so the building where I had the dream about the church starting and going in and teaching and people in the balcony and fresh oil on the highway and the sign on the building, being connected to the sign of the church that I was pastoring at that time, very similar, but the building was marked for demolition. So, well, it's not that one. So I just drove down the highway a little bit farther and turned into the shopping center, and all of the 12 bays or suites or
Sweet's a good word.
yeah, were all taken but one. And there was a for lease sign that had been posted in the window that morning. And so I'm just sitting there in the parking lot, and at that point I did have a cell phone. It was a flip phone, and you had to pay for your phone calls. But I thought, I'm going to call this number right now. So I flipped the phone up, I dialed the number and call, and an older lady, probably in her 80s at that point, answers the phone. And I said, I'm inquiring about the space for rent here on 377 in the shopping center. Do you want to hear the story?
Yeah.
Okay. And so her voice is kind of crickling. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm the bookkeeper for 2 brothers that went to Vegas and gambled, or went somewhere and gambled, and they won a bet on a horse, and it was a long shot, and they decided with the money to buy that shopping center. It was for sale. So they don't know what they're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing, but can you come meet them at my house? Because I'm the bookkeeper, and I do all the bookkeeping at my house. So I said, sure. So she lived 2 blocks away from where we lived in Edgecliff Village.
Wow. I didn't know this.
So I go the next day to meet them, and so I pull in and go walking in, and then just right behind me are the 2 brothers that come in. And so they said the same thing. Yeah, we just won a bet, and we struck gold at the track, and bought that shopping center, and we're going to use it for an income property. And well, how much are you willing to pay for that space? And I said, well, fellas, my rent right now is $300 a month, and I think I can pay another $300 a month. So I've got a tablet here to write it down, and she's a notary. I'm willing to pay $300 a month, and we'll finish it out and paint it and get it ready for having a church in there. So one brother looks at the other one, they look back at each other and go, $300 more than we're getting now. All right, it's a deal. So we
awesome.
shake hands, we write it up on a yellow tablet paper. She notarizes it, and that's the contract for us to rent the space in the shopping center.
Man, what a time to be alive.
So they only had it for like a year. They lost everything and went bankrupt. They kept gambling. They lost everything and went bankrupt. So it was bought out by an investment group of lawyers from San Antonio. Mm-hmm. So they send up their real estate broker for their law firm investment group up. He goes along and meets with everybody, and I'd been told he was coming. I got a letter that he was coming to negotiate new rent with everybody. So I see him there in a suit, pulls in the parking lot. There was the glass front, and my office was in the front. And he comes walking, and he goes everyone, and skips me and goes all the rest. And then he comes to me at the end of the day. And so he came in and said, Pastor Klingenberg, I'm here on behalf of, I think it was Los Alamos or something, anyway, their group, to negotiate a contract with you. And I just want you to know that I'm not here to play hardball, but we have to, I don't know how you made this deal, but we have to come to an agreement. We don't want to kick a church out. And so he was all defensive and all nervous and everything. I said, time out, stop. What's the deal here? And he said, well, we just don't know how in the world you got this rental property to start this church for $1 a square foot. And we're just thinking you must be a really hard negotiator that you got this deal. And we purchased this, and I've got to show a profit on this to all the investors. And so we can't give it to you for that rate. I just started laughing. I told him the story like I just told you about what happened with the elderly lady bookkeeper, the two brothers. Told him a story. He said, oh, that makes sense. So they didn't know what they were doing, but we do know what we're doing.
And
so
you're going to pay more.
and you're going to pay more. And so we went up from $300 a month to $1,500 a month.
Whoa.
And that was huge.
But we had more space even by then.
Yeah, we did. But we made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the relational side of all of this, I asked you at the beginning what your favorite thing was. Now, looking back as you were going from, because a lot of that happened within 8-10 years from dating to starting a church.
Let's see. We were married in 84, and the church started in 95. So I served two churches for 5 years each before we started the church.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in another podcast, your history on ministry and all
Church
that.
life, all the
Yeah.
interesting, yeah.
But looking back, I mean, y'all were so young. You're so young in your relationship. You're young in your faith. You're young
Yep.
in life. You're young parents.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was your favorite thing about them then?
About your dad?
Yeah.
My favorite thing about your dad back then and even today, but that he was a man of prayer. So he used to have his quiet time in the closet on his knees, and he had calluses on his knees because he was so devoted to prayer. And I knew that I could trust him within the Lord because I knew he spent time with the Lord.
Wow.
She would have to bring in the emotion.
You're the one crying.
Your chin started quivering.
Dad, what was your favorite thing?
Through that season, I think just the joy of seeing God work. Just recognizing that I'm not anybody significant. Gifting and talent isn't that significant. Don't have wealth. Didn't have connection to wealth. Wasn't in a significant area of the world, so to speak. I mean, a lot of times I felt like Amos, and Amos said, "I'm just the son of a sycamore tree pruner," and so many times I thought that, and I would even say sometimes I'm just the son of a welder. Not that there's anything wrong with welding, but I could relate to Amos wondering, God, why me? I'm nobody.
Right.
My dad pruned sycamore trees for a living. Why me? And so sometimes I kind of wondered that, but nevertheless, I've always had faith, and I know when God speaks, and if he speaks, and I'm full of confidence that it's him, then I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
So
It goes back to, I think, choosing to believe, choosing to walk in faith and not in fear. So I think people have said, well, it's easy for you because you all are pastors. We're like, well, we didn't grow up as pastors. Our parents weren't pastors. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with your relationship with the Lord.
yeah.
Not to change the vibe, but I am curious, what was your least favorite thing about that person during that time?
And the time is early ministry life or early married life.
So
Least
you
favorite.
didn't give your favorite thing about me during that
Oh,
season.
I'm sorry. I thought it was about ministry. It was about Dawn.
That's
Oh,
about
my
you.
favorite thing about Dawn was her pleasant disposition. Her
Back then?
her
Not today.
Well, it's very similar to the answer he gave today.
Right.
Her sweet spirit. And then
I've
back
been the
then,
same
her
all these
pleasant
years.
disposition.
well,
Anything new?
she.
Anything else?
I knew the tag team was going to happen. I just didn't know it was going to be like this. Yeah. I loved it that she was able to flow because so many things changed. How many places did we live? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh yeah, y'all
5,
moved like 8 times.
6, 7. Yeah, we moved a lot.
Sorry,
Because-
everything that would help a relationship end, you guys experienced in the first 8 years.
Mhm.
Everything.
Moves,
Moving.
job changes,
Cars.
Family.
unemployment,
Oh yeah. Being fired.
being fired, and
Family drama.
going back to
Family
family
drama.
drama, children, the expense of children. Yeah,
Wreck. Injury.
multiple wrecks.
Moving.
Yeah.
Starting a new business. Literally all of it. Man, we could have spent like 4 days on this conversation.
Yeah. So I loved it that she was steady and peaceful and loving and kind and always
Partnered with you.
always partnered with me. Always was willing to hold hands while we walked. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't get into sexual and non-sexual affection.
No, not this podcast.
Not any podcast.
Thank you for
Self-restraint.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, just she was my partner.
Yeah.
And, you know, and not in
Yeah.
spite of, but we're very different. You've seen we're now using Culture Index to understand leadership style and leadership communication. So we're about as opposite as two people can be.
Which we knew before we took Culture Index.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because after all these years married, you're both unwaveringly different. You're maintaining that course.
I think I've changed a lot.
You obviously both very much improved. That's that goes without saying. I'm just, you know,
Yes. Right.
I'm the narrator. Don't mind me.
Yes.
So your favorite thing was her pleasant disposition. Now, what was your least favorite thing? I knew you were gonna take that whole cop out of I just don't hold on to things anymore. I just let them all go.
Wow, it's like you read my mind.
Were you gonna say that? You're gonna say that. I knew
She
it.
remembers things.
I could take a guess from stories, but I would love for you guys to share.
Least favorite thing.
Your house got broken into. We'll add that to the list of the things that constrain
Oh,
a
yeah.
relationship
Yeah.
in the same time frame.
True.
Man, we should really add these up. So yeah, one last funny story and funny tip, and then we'll wrap up this conversation.
Oh, I thought you were taking us somewhere.
No,
No.
she wants you to tell a funny story, and she seeded cockroaches. So do you want to tell the?
Yeah, we're coming to the end of our conversation. We only have like maybe 5 to 10 minutes left of.
Why don't
Record time.
you do all the dives that I had you live in for the first 10 years?
Maybe a highlight, low light of early married life.
Come on, the dives that I had you live in with the water bugs, the cockroaches, the mice, the rats, the snakes, the feral cats.
It's not like we lived in a zoo.
We did.
And yeah, and then you had 5 kids, so it just got a little
In the zoo.
crazier.
Y'all quit staring at me because I have nothing.
All right, Dad, would you like to take it home?
Funny story. I would say there could be many of them.
Oh, I thought of one. When Dad left the eggs boiling on the
Oh,
stovetop. Because the reason this one comes to my mind is because way later in life, when I actually learned this story, we're at Ridge Circle, and Dad was in charge of cooking dinner. I don't know where you were, but I was home, and you gave me strict instructions about who was preparing dinner. So I had it all out, and I had the mixing bowl with the brown rice. I knew you boiled the water and then poured it in the bowl, but Dad didn't know that, so Dad took the glass bowl with the brown rice and put it on the stovetop, and I'm up in the upstairs where my room was, and getting ready to come down to help make dinner for you, wherever you were. And I hear this massive explosion, and the glass bowl blew up because you can't heat water on a glass bowl on a stovetop. I was like, what happened? And Dad told me he was trying to cook the rice.
I
To
don't
me,
even remember that.
I don't think
That's
that
funny.
happened.
It happened, and then Dad
I
told
don't
me the
think
story
that
about the
happened.
eggs. He's like, I
Yeah.
should have known that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Told me the
let me tell
story.
the egg story. So that was our second house. So that was in our second year of
Oh,
marriage.
yeah.
First house was
Yeah.
on Hurley.
Yeah.
So that was our second house. So that would have been our second year of marriage. And you were working days then,
Yes.
and I was in school days. And so she wasn't big on cooking at that point, or keeping the house clean or doing laundry.
You
So
That
I
would
was,
be
Blink
your
your
least.
eyes.
That's your least favorite thing. Is Mom's cooking early on.
That is not the case.
So I put on.
Probably your least favorite thing too is cooking early on, because all his food stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you gonna let me talk?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I put on a big thing of eggs to boil because that's cheap food. So we ate a lot of eggs because we could afford it. So I put them on to boil, and then look at my watch and realized that I had
Class.
and this is I was working. Was I working? That's when I was working night shift. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, all night, and so I was wabba-jabbied on sleep. So anyway, I put them on to boil. Looked at my watch, realized class was starting. So I grabbed my backpack and took off running. We were 3 blocks away from school, and I ran, got to my class. Typical of classes, you know
I
it's
just
coming.
love this story.
Typical of classes. Then the lectures were so boring. I just would sit there and just make notes on what they could do to be a better communicator.
Wow.
And so I wasn't there 10 minutes and just the monotone, boring presentation, and I fall asleep. And I fall asleep into a dream about the house burning down. And literally, I'm bobbing and weaving, trying to stay awake, and sitting in the back of the class, and I bob, I'm asleep, and immediately it's a snap dream about the house burning. And I wake up, and it was like, I left the eggs on the stove. So I was late to class. So now I grab my backpack, and I'm apologizing my way, making my way out of the class as fast as I can. I sprint down, open the door. It's smoking. They had just, all the water had just boiled off. And so the eggs were cooking in the pan with no water on them, and they were already burning and exploding and charring. And it would have burnt the house down. So I think of the grace of God. He gave me a dream as I'm falling asleep in class about the eggs being left on the pot to boil. And so I just grabbed them, opened the door, and threw the whole thing out in the backyard, and then got the hose and just started hosing it all down. So
I come home from work, all the windows are open. It smelled terrible.
I'm sure.
I
Like,
sprayed. What was the spray?
Happened?
What's the name of that spray that you sprayed in the bathroom after I went to the bathroom?
Lysol?
No.
Febreze?
Yes, Febreze. Just I was spraying it all through the house trying to get rid of the burnt smell.
That's so funny. Okay, have you ever kept a secret from one another?
Not very well.
Mine is your failed attempts for like surprise gifts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when you tried to keep my boots a secret.
Like for instance, you ever like, I don't know, broken something or lost something, you're like, maybe I can replace it, they'll never know. Have you ever done anything like that?
Oh, she
No,
does stuff
do
like
you
that all the
know
time.
your dad? What?
I know that one time we broke a Precious Moments
Yes.
thing in the living room. But, you know, I think one of the things that pulls relationships apart, especially young ones, is what you're unwilling to fess up.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all ever have any moments like that?
I can't think of any.
I can't either.
We're pretty. We try to keep fresh accounts.
You're both bad at keeping secrets.
Or well.
Yeah. Well, we both communicate our day,
Yeah.
and so that would uncover stuff.
True.
Oh, so every day from early on in marriage, y'all would
Communicate our day.
Mm-hmm.
unpack the
I
day.
think that was a
Yep.
practice. Probably you started. Tell me about your day, and he does it from
Back
the
to
end,
front.
back to front, and I do it front to back, of course.
Yeah. You've also done that my entire life.
Yeah.
How to go backwards. All right, so my day. So I'm eating dinner now. 10 minutes ago, I was doing this.
Right.
20 minutes ago, I was doing that. I'm like, my brain's like, why would you go backwards?
It's fun.
But we've done that forever as a family. So I didn't know you started that early in your marriage, too.
It's
We
always been
started
there.
it. Yeah, we started that when we first got married. I wanted to know where she was. I wanted to be sure she wasn't gonna, become interested in somebody else.
Prior
You
dating
were
history.
never insecure about that.
When did you bring in the spoken blessing? Was that before kids?
Yes.
Spoken blessing before kids.
Mm-hmm.
I had a revelation at a funeral that I was doing.
Yep.
And I looked up the meaning of the word eulogy to understand, okay, now exactly how do I do this according to the biblical meaning of this word, and saw that the definition of the word eulogy is to speak well words or to speak blessings. And then I was in 1 Peter 3, studying and praying, and it jumped off the page. You were called for the very purpose that you might inherit a blessing.
Yeah.
1 Peter 3:9, I think. And that became one of my life verses. So that was my verse for the year that year. You were called for the very purpose that you might inherit a blessing, to be one to speak blessings, to encourage people. And so we just started doing it, and I think I chose, was it your birthday?
I think we did. I'm thankful for you because, like, we started just saying what we were thankful for with each other, and then it kind of just grew into, the spoken blessing that we did with you all as kids, and we've instituted into our life.
Yeah, so I
Part
would
of our
say
culture.
we're about to celebrate anniversary 39. So I would say that was at about 2-year mark.
Maybe.
So 37 years ago. It was just an insight that I had from the meaning of a word and from a verse of scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started doing it to dawn, and then we
Yeah.
added it to birthday.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, remember I said your dad is really good at visionary things. So I feel like the Lord has just given vision, and we just fall into it basically because we're always asking the Lord, what's next, or what do you have for us? But I think that was one thing that really impacted us, both of us, because I come from a background that can tend to be very negative. And so we purposed, especially I purposed, to not be negative, to be positive. And so saying, I'm thankful for you because of this, things that we're purposefully thankful for, going along with some of the other things that we've incorporated. And I just had something go through my brain. I can't think of what it was, but goes along with the blessing.
Me getting you chocolate?
Oh, so no. Okay, so he's very purposeful about trying to seek the Lord and hear the Lord for visionary things, and that was something the Lord dropped into our lap, was being thankful for each other and sharing those things that we are thankful with, because that's a building thing that builds relationship. And then also, if ever we got crossways with each other, the Lord put this in your dad's heart to say, at the end of it, what do I need to ask forgiveness for? And being very specific with
Oh,
asking
okay.
forgiveness. So gratefulness and forgiveness are eternal principles.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Lord has given us little nuggets of eternal things that he's given Dad vision for, and we've incorporated into our marriage, which we incorporated into our parenting, which we incorporated into our life.
Yep.
Being grateful and being thankful, and then blessing.
So
Yeah.
the first year of marriage, you cried every day, pretty much.
Probably.
So we had something that we fussed about, that we were crossways about, that we didn't know how to resolve. And so I was just broken by it one time because I'd hurt her again and didn't intend to. And my face, she said, was intense, and my tone was intense, and I didn't feel that inside, but that's the way it showed up. And so she was hurt and crying again. I'm like, this kills me because I love her so much. I don't want this to be the case. So I was in my quiet time in Corinthians, where it says the difference between worldly sorrow and godly sorrow. And it just struck me. Worldly sorrow says, I'm sorry. Godly sorrow says, please forgive me. And so then we incorporated that in. So that goes back 38 years of whenever something happens, we don't huff away and just let time just, diminish. And then someday just like it never happened. Because that's a wound that needed salve and oil, the biblical principle of applying salve to a wound or oil to a wound, that wound didn't get it. It just healed up and scarred. And so that we needed to make certain that we kept our spiritual accounts clear so that there wouldn't be wounds in our soul.
Right.
And so
That's beautiful.
that's why we taught you all, saying you're sorry does communicate sorrow, but that's
Right.
basically worldly level only. So back to spirit, soul, body, that's the soul. That's the soulish realm. But
Forgiveness.
and so the reason why I say is, what do I need to ask forgiveness for? Is because a lot of times I don't know what it is. I just know she's crying, and so I need help.
He has no clue. What did I do?
Yeah,
I
and
need
he-
help.
He wants to partner with the help of your
Yes.
spirit.
Yes.
And so then it's, I'm sorry, but more than that, it's, will you please forgive me for having an aggressive tone and coming on strong with that thing that God, it's not eternally significant. God doesn't care, and I shouldn't have made an issue out of it. Will you please forgive me? She says, yes, I forgive you. And then we hug. And then,
Man.
And then I say, what do I need to ask forgiveness for?
You do?
We'll talk about this later. Just
Well,
kidding.
you might be right.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, I love that you brought in the eternally significant phrase. I heard that a lot growing up. Is it eternally significant? In your sweet mom voice. And it sounds like the way that you were able to protect strength and to live well together is that you really focused on eternally, how is this going to impact us? If it
Right.
doesn't, then it shouldn't bother us forever physically in the temporal. But if it will, then we need to deal with it now.
Right.
So you took extra effort, went the extra mile as all of that chaos was happening to find the eternally foundationally significant elements of your spirit, soul, and body individually and as a couple.
Correct.
And that it would always be on the same page.
Yes.
And that looked like every single day
Yes.
recalibrating,
Yep.
Yes.
which is commitment.
For a
Yeah.
while. Yeah, it had to happen every day. Now it's just every 2 or 3 days.
I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much for telling your story and unpacking all this with us. Thank you, Mom, for being here.
Yes.
Thanks for asking me.
Hercules, Hercules.
Wearing the
Hercules.
headphones.
It's very painful.
It's a monumental moment. We appreciate it.
Thank you.